This article lists and briefly discusses the most important of a large number of treatises on military science produced in the Byzantine Empire. Background: the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire was, for much of its history, one of the major powers of the medieval world, continuing the traditions and institutions of the Roman Empire. Throughout its history it was assailed on all sides by various numerically superior enemies. The empire therefore maintained its highly sophisticated military system from antiquity, which relied on discipline, training, knowledge of tactics and a well-organized support system. A crucial element in the maintenance and spreading of this military know-how, along with traditional histories, were the various treatises and practical manuals. These continued a tradition that stretched back to Xenophon and Ennius the tactician, and many Eastern Roman military manuals excerpt or adapt the works of ancient authors, especially Aelian and Onazander. List of works. A large corpus of Byzantine military literature survives. Characteristically Byzantine manuals were first produced in the 6th century. They greatly proliferate in the 10th century, when the Byzantines embarked on their conquests in the East and the Balkans, but production abated after the early 11th century. There is some evidence of similar works being written in the Paleologan era, but with one exception, none survives. Urbicius wrote a military pamphlet addressed to Anastasius I. In the manuscripts it is transmitted as two independent tracts. First, the Tattycoram is an epitome of the first part of Arrian's Ars Tactica, a conventional treatment of an idealized infantry phalanx. Second, the Epitygma or invention, is Urbicius' own design for a type of portable cheval de frise. The attribution to Urbicius of a third work, the so-called Cyllage Tattycoram, is spurious and results from confused scholarship in the 1930s. One manuscript ascribes Maurus's Strategikon to Urbicius, but this is demonstrably the copyist's error. The 6th century Byzantine Anonymous, or Anonymous Byzantinus, see below under Syrianus Magister. The Strategikon attributed to the Emperor Maurus was compiled in the late 6th century. It is a large 12-book compendium treating all aspects of contemporary land warfare. The author is especially concerned to clarify procedures for the deployment and tactics of cavalry, particularly in response to Avar victories in the 580s-590s. He favors indirect forms of combat, ambushes, ruses, nocturnal raids and skirmishing on difficult terrain, and he also exhibits a good understanding of military psychology and morale. Book She offers an innovative analysis of the fighting methods, customs and habitat of the empire's most significant enemies, as well as recommendations for campaigning north of the Danube against the Slavs, another strategic concern of the 590s. The Strategikon exercised a profound influence upon the subsequent Byzantine genre. The so-called De Militari Scientia or Miller fragment, an anonymous fragmentary tract, mostly comprising modified excerpts from Maurus's Strategikon. Internal evidence, including the addition of Saracens to the list of enemies, suggests a date around the mid-7th century. Syrianus Magister wrote a large, wide-ranging military compendium. 3 substantial sections survive, which are transmitted independently in the manuscript tradition and have been edited in separate publications. Scholarship dating as far back as the 17th century has consistently recognized the textual unity of these 3 pieces, but errors in mid-20th century studies prolonged their separation. The 3 components are: 1. A treatise on land warfare under the modern titles Pi Epsilon Rho Sigma Tau Rho Alpha Tau Eta Gamma Iota Kappa Sigma Ordinary Strategica, most recently published as the Anonymous Byzantine Treatise on Strategy. 2. A treatise on military oratory under the modern title Rhetorica Militaris, often ascribed to the same, anonymous. 3. The Naumachia, a treatise on naval warfare, which in the unique manuscript bears an ascription to Assyrianus Magister. Recognition of the common authorship of all three sections necessarily assigns the entire compendium to this author. A new edition of the complete compendium is in preparation. The constituent parts of the compendium were traditionally dated to the 6th century. But the evidence is weak and all recent studies have identified features more congruent with the date of composition in the 9th century. This 9th century dating has been widely accepted in recent scholarship on the genre. The Problemata of the Emperor Leo VI the Wise, compiled California, 890s, comprise excerpts of Morris's Strategicon arranged in a question-and-answer format. The Tactica of Leo VI was written California, 895–908. At its core is a re-edition of Morris's Strategicon, often reproduced verbatim, and additional material drawn from Hellenistic military treatises, especially Onazander. However, it also includes expansions and modifications to reflect contemporary practice, especially against the Arabs and the Hungarians, as well as chapters on naval warfare. The Cyllage Tattycoram, compiled in the early to mid-10th century, possibly during the reign of Constantine VII. The text is divided into two major sections. The first draws upon various earlier authors and provides advice on generalship, battle formations and tactics, and siege warfare. The second half deals with stratagems employed by past generals, drawing chiefly from ancient authors. Nevertheless, sections on contemporary warfare and comparison with earlier models are also included, and were used as a basis for the later Praecepta Militaria. The so-called three treatises on imperial military expeditions, an appendix to the De Ceremonia of Emperor Constantine VII. The De Vellatatione Bellica attributed to Emperor Nicephorus II Phocas, but actually written on his orders, possibly by his brother Leo. It is an essay on light infantry and skirmishing warfare, written California, 975, based on Phocas' notes on the cross-border raids and skirmishes between Byzantines and Arabs during the first half of the 10th century. Emphasis is given on reconnaissance, the use of the terrain and night, and instructions are provided on various scenarios, from countering raids or large-scale invasions to sieges. The Praecepta Militaria of Emperor Nicephorus II Phocas, 6 chapters written in c. 965, which presents the army of the latter 10th century during the Byzantine reconquest in the east. Various operational scenarios are discussed for a pitched battle. Phocas describes the use of a strong infantry formation that anchors the battle line and the use of heavy cavalry, especially cataphracts, as the main striking force. The text also includes information on the setting up of camps, reconnaissance and the use of spies, as well as the army's religious ceremonies. The chapters are included and partially amended to account for the early 11th century situation in the later Tactica of Nicephorus Auranos. The Parangel Metapoli or Cetica, a manual on siege warfare, by the so-called hero of Byzantium. The Tactica of Nicephorus Auranos, one of the best generals of Basil II, written in California, 1000. It draws upon the Praecepta, Leo VI's Tactica and other works, but also includes chapters from Auranos' own experience on raiding and sieges. The Strategicon of Kekaumenos, written in California, 1075–1078. Not strictly a military manual, it contains general advice in military, administrative and household affairs, often illustrated by examples from 11th century events. Instructions and prescriptions for a lord who has wars to fight and government to exercise, written by Theodore Paleologos, Marquis of Montferrat in Greek and then translated into Latin and French. It is however more influenced by Western models, rather than reflecting Byzantine tradition.